Good evening. Good evening. We love a good theme music, honey. Okay. Welcome to yet another Minorities and Mental Health. Tonight it is Ladies' Night. It's all about women's mental health. I'm Persia Nicole. You can hang out with me Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on IDQQ. I'm just one of your hosts tonight.
I am the other half. We tag teaming tonight. Hey, everybody. It's your girl, Steph Lover. You can find me on weekends. I'm at Magic 95.9. BMORE. You know what we're doing today. It's all about Women's History Month, and I'm just happy to be here. And we're going to start off right away with our very first distinguished guest, our first panel, Devi Bhuyan. Doctor, is it doctor?
Yes, it
Dr. Devi Bhuyan, thank you and welcome.
Hi, my name is Devi Bhuyan. I am the Director of Clinical Psychology at Sheppard Pratt. And before I came to this country, I was working in India on women's issues, primarily on domestic violence, childhood sexual abuse. And so I'm familiar with some of the topics we're going to talk today.
Thank you.
Welcome. Next up, let's welcome on in NAMI Maryland board member Charita Cole-Brown. Welcome in.
Hi, I'm Charita Cole-Brown. I'm author of the memoir, Defying the Verdict, My Bipolar Life, and I have been living in bipolar recovery for 30 years.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for being here as well. And next up, we have Cindy. Cindy, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Cindy Tawiah. Did I say it right?
Cindy Tawiah.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
And, my name is Cindy Tawiah, and I'm the founder of the Diva Day Spa and Healing Center. And prior to this, I was a registered nurse at St. Agnes Hospital.
Right here in Center, Upperco, Maryland. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Last but not least, my girl. You know, I just actually the news with her today on Fox 45. The Tiffany, Lady T. Watson. Welcome on in.
Hey, queen.
What's up, T?
How y'all doing? Hi, yes, I'm Lady T, TV host, comedian, actress, all that good stuff. It's just an honor to be on here with you amazing women.
Absolutely. I think we should kick things off just talking about us and our women and our just having the superpowers, because that's exactly what we do. For me, when I think about a woman, the first word that comes to mind is unstoppable. Steph, when you think about a woman, what's like the first thing that comes to mind? Because, you know, we're definitely unstoppable in everything.
I would say resilient. In this day and age, you have to be resilient just to break even sometimes.
Let's go across from top to bottom and talk about what you think. When you talk about a woman, what is one word that you could use to describe it? Cindy, then we'll go to Lady T and go across the bottom.
Strong and empowered.
Yes.
Yes.
Come on, Lady T, what we doing?
When I think of a woman, I don't know why the word healing comes to mind. I feel like there's so much on us a lot of the time. So we're constantly having to heal from trauma, from past wounds. So I always think of a woman as like she's a healer. She is healing. So I don't know why that word came to mind, but yeah, she's phenomenal. But we have to literally, we are healing. We are recovering at this time from so much. Oh my God, we're strong. Strength is what I think of when I think of a woman.
Yep, I agree. Let's keep it going down the bottom, Devi.
All the things, I thought of resilience too, but I also thought about sort of security, attachment security. I thought of folks who, especially female figures, who provide that source of security and attachment.
Charita?
A compassionate conduit of hope.
Oh, I like that one. Okay, all right.
Conduit, yes.
I like it. Steph, let's kick off some questions. We're going to go right into it. And of course, for those of you, wherever you're watching that, as we're having this, we're all the way till 8 p.m. Whatever questions you have, we'll put up on the chat and we'll make sure we get it answered by our experts.
Exactly why we're here. This whole month has been amazing. I don't know how you ladies have been coping, but It's been up and down roller coaster with all the craziness going on in the world. So it kind of makes you stop and pause for a moment. So I wanted to put the question out there to anyone that feels like answering it. Like in this day and age, being, I don't know, a mom, a single woman, you know, a businesswoman, how do you cope? Like, some mechanisms to cope is always helpful for me. I like to have tools to learn how to alleviate some of the stress and then, you know, kind of deal with people. My mother always tells me to meet people where they are. That's what I try to do. So I guess I wanted to put that out there. How does everyone deal with the stress or the pressure that just comes with being a woman, being a mother, being a mom? You know, just trying to, you know, set an example without, I guess, crashing out, going a little crazy, because it does happen.
I would say, in the words of MC Hammer, we need to pray just to make it today.
Okay. Well, I like it.
That's great advice.
I feel like establishing a safe space in your home. So even if you can't get out there to a luxurious place, corner of your bedroom, put a water fountain, put some candles, put a little table, music, you know, essential oils, a place where you go to retreat away from all of that. And then your phone usage as well. The more you're scrolling, the more you're looking, the more you're panicking, the more you're afraid. So every now and again, give yourself breaks from that so that you can kind of recoup and detox your mind.
I think for me, my biggest source of strength is a sense of community with people who you feel secure with, who are friendly, compassionate, who understand. And so it is a really tough time. And I remember even the day after the election, because a lot of this is also bubbling up because of a lot of things that are currently happening politically, that you take a sense of community and you take a sense of a lot of women, and I will say a lot of Black women that I saw who just sort of made it through the day, you know, and make it through the day. So those are the two things that I constantly think of in terms of how to survive this time and how to survive this day.
Survive and thrive. Yes, that's the goal, is to survive and thrive. How about you, Lady T?
Well, I'm constantly looking towards my village, my besties, my friends, the people who surround me. Even though I feel like as women, a lot of times we take on so much, so we don't want like anyone to think that we are weak at any point. And I'm learning slowly that it's okay to tell your friends or your family, like, hey, look, I'm not okay right now. Like, so I sometimes turn to them just for some comfort, some support. You know, it's not easy kind of looking weak. It's not, I feel like I look weak when I'm like, I'm not okay. Like, can we go hang out? Like, I feel like I'm going insane or something. And like, I just need to cope. And so it's okay to say out loud that you're not okay. So I find that has really been helpful, just seeking the support of my village, my circle, my people. And then also on the side, I don't know if you ever been to Amigos. There's this pineapple drink, and it really does help me cope because it's in a pineapple, and you can feel like you at the beach, and you're not at the beach. But it's really helped me cope on Tuesdays. So just giving y'all a heads up that helps, with a cherry on top and whipped cream and a pineapple.
I love, you know what? Happy hour never hurt nobody. And I love that. Happy hour anytime, sign me up for that.
Facts.
In addition to our great drinks that will also, and it's our good village, our good tribe, our best friends and family, things like that. Devi, let's talk about how societal expectations and gender norms contribute to the mental health challenges, you know, faced by us women, and how we can address these pressures in a meaningful way, right? That if you can kind of chime in on that a little bit, that'd be good.
Yeah, I was, thinking about it. There are many things, and I wanted to reflect on some statistics. We did talk about sort of domestic violence disproportionately affects women. We talked about sexual abuse and rape disproportionately affects women. But there are larger, more ubiquitous day to day things. For example, this came out a few years ago, but the statistics show that two-thirds of the unpaid labor done by women, right? Household work, raising children, cleaning the house, running chores, two-thirds of that unpaid done by women.
That's the
That's,
stress I was talking about. Stuff like that.
yeah. The other thing is also in terms of mental labor. So there's unpaid labor and there's mental labor, the emotional labor. So if women are in families, organizing family events, getting kids, the family to even sort of plan holidays and things like that, mostly fall on women. A lot of that mental work, which can be stressful. And in partnerships, you often hear sometimes husbands talk about just tell me what to do. But even the telling what to do, somebody has to think about it, right?
Yeah.
I think those are all the ways in which does it lead to it leads to a certain kind of stress that is disproportionate amongst sort of our gender roles. So I'm going to stop here and I'll just ask some questions about what your experiences are about this factor, which is much more subtle, right? But I think it is pretty extensive for a lot of women who feel similar.
Yeah. Do you want to pose the question to our panel?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
Ms. Charita, do you want to go first or?
I sure can.
Okay.
When we are talking about stressors for women, especially Black women have to understand that we are still living under the mammy dynamic. You know, people still expect us to be able to do it all, to bear it all on our shoulders. Mammy would take care of your children, her children, all the children, cook, clean, and smile. And that is still, in a lot of instances, the expectation of Black women. And we need opportunities to just pause and rest and understand that all of that is not our responsibility.
Because one thing we're going to do is sometimes we're going to put on ourselves all the time, and then we're taking all the baggage and everything else, and it's all on our back, and we can feel it. We can feel the pressure. Yeah.
I want to pivot or kind of like piggyback off what Charita said. That what I found with what I do is a lot of guilt around even getting self-care or getting help or getting therapy or talking. It's like, oh, I don't feel like I'm worthy of this, and yet we're carrying such a heavy burden. Who else is more worthy and more deserving than the Black woman? Who is? She's carrying society on her back. She's a consumer, she's a worker, she's a career woman, she's a single mother, she's everything. And yet sometimes I hear the guilt of I don't feel worthy to get a massage or get a scrub or do whatever it is. And you are deserving, Black woman. So that's what I wanted to kind of piggyback off of, because the guilt needs to go. It really does.
I love that. And if you've never been to Cindy's spa, it's phenomenal, by the way. And like, you're not just going to a spa where you're going to go get pampered, but you get a message like that in the process of it. And we all need a reassurance when we walk in somewhere. Before you rub on me, can you reassure me real quick? And that's what you're going to get.
You know what? Just to piggyback off of that, sorry, I had a little technical difficulty there. But just to piggyback on that, or what you just said, Cindy, like, how can we better support different women of different cultural, racial, socioeconomic backgrounds? Because we're all different. We're all Black women, but we're all different. And just, I think women in general, in addressing mental health, I don't think, mental health cares about your race. When it comes for you, it comes for you. And you gotta learn how to, deal with it. I always try to find, de-stressors, especially when we're on the radio, the pressure's on. Like there is no where it's live. So maybe we could touch on that, just piggybacking off what you said, Cindy, about just, trying to kind of make that village understand, and also understanding them, because, you got to it's a give and take situation from my POV. It always seems to work better when it's give and take, because there's a lot of takers in this world, and that's facts. So what do you think, Steve? Yeah.
I also just wanted to highlight the person who came. She's our facilities person in housekeeping.
Oh, she's working. Listen.
And she's working, right?
She's working. Hey,
and I know I chat with
her coins,
I chat with, and many carry weekend jobs too, to raise their children and give their children a better opportunity than they had. So it was very interesting as we were talking about this, that this just happened.
You didn't even skip a beat. So neither
no, she said, I got a job to do. Let me get it done.
Okay. That's real life. You girl interrupted. You got to keep going, keep it together. So, Lady T, what you think? Like you run across a whole bunch of different kind of people, as do we all. But sometimes when you're in a small, intimate setting, you got to kind of figure it out faster than usual.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of pressure, and we don't really talk about that too often. There's a lot of pressure on us, and that is what leads to the stress and us thinking that we have to be superwoman and solve everything. Because in my experience, just being media journalism, it feels like I have become Mrs. Fix-It for everybody. Your stuff didn't work out, this didn't follow through, this didn't come through. Lady T has a connection. Lady T has somebody I can find for this. Lady T knows a person. Lady T can do that. Lady T can do, like, literally, Lady T is Mrs. Fix-It. And it's so much pressure, because it's like, okay, you want me to get married, you want me to have kids, you want me to be an amazing host, you want me to also, book and do all these things. It's like, wait a minute, I can only take but so much. But we can't say that. So it's a lot of pressure on us, honestly. I remember going to Cindy's spa, which is amazing. And she told me, she was like, your cortisone levels are really high. And I was like, that's crazy, because I don't even use hydrocortisone cream like that. So what you talking about, sis? I was like, huh? Cortisone? I don't use hydrocortisone cream. Stop playing with me. And she was like, I'm talking about your stress levels, Lady T. And then that's what I think I just started crying. I was just like, I really am stressed out. I was like, are we allowed to say that? Is this a safe space? You know what I mean? But it's so much. I told her that day, I said, it's so much pressure on me. Like, I have to be great. I am a Black woman, so I have to be great. I can't show up here and not be talented. I can't show up here and not, succeed. I gotta keep getting a new degree every year, a new certification. I got to keep up. I gotta keep up with everyone, everything. I gotta keep up with society. I gotta keep up with what being a success is. Like, I have to keep up as a Black woman. That's what I find is the issue nowadays, and that's why it's like, my goodness, like, the pressure is on.
Yeah, the pressure is definitely on. As women, as Black women, especially women of color, every single day in the world that we're in right now. But we continue to do our thing, and we continue to keep it pushing and keep it moving. We have a whole bunch, of course, of resources, and that's why we're doing this event tonight. And again, like, whatever you have, if you just want to comment, chime in, or whatever, just put something up. Or if you have something positive to say, like, or how you do self-care, whatever it is, pop it on the screen so we all can use suggestions. Like, I listen, I love it all. So let's get into some more like misconceptions, right? And now, Charita, let's talk about this in your experience. What have been like two of the biggest misconceptions about bipolar disorder? Because there's a whole lot of them.
There's a whole lot of them. One of them is that people think you can just pray your way out of bipolar, or you can think your way out of bipolar. And you don't have to have it. You have it because you want to. Now I'm going to tell you, because I have been diagnosed with a severe form of bipolar disorder. Nobody chooses this. I would not wish this on an enemy. We have to become more compassionate and understand that this is not something that you just pray away. Now, I'm not saying that people do not get delivered, because they have. But for me, I have a whole wellness plan that I use. But people need to understand that you can indeed live well with mental illness. And what I will say here is, and thank you for giving me an opportunity, what I will say here is there is a difference between a mental illness and mental health. So I have a mental illness diagnosis. Everybody has mental health. Everybody. You don't have to have a mental illness. Just like you have physical health, just like you have spiritual health, just like you have emotional health, just like you have, I hope, financial health. Everybody has mental health. And it's a space like Lady T, thank the Lord that you went to Cindy's place and she told you the cortisol is up. You got to give yourself a space to relax. And that's one of the things with our mental health that we don't give ourselves a space to do. We don't say, that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
Go lay down. Go sit down.
You can't. Sometimes you actually can't. The world is moving so fast. You're trying to keep up. Like you said, we have this perception that, only the strong survive. And I think, as women, Lady T, you're right. Sometimes you gotta tell people, I can't. I find the strongest word and the most effective word sometimes is no. No.
Yes, that's it.
Even when you're trying to help somebody out, when you're helping them, sometimes their problems become your problems. Even when you're trying to help, you want to help your friend get to the airport at 6 a.m. Well, I'm not a morning person, so you got to call somebody else.
Here we are.
I'm throwing a couple dollars for you to get an Uber or something like that if it's really that serious. But I don't allow other people's problems to become my problems. And some of that has to do with social media. I do believe that a lot of women, judge themselves according to what's online, and they don't understand that that's not real. I was just wondering, to the panel, how do you guys feel about the emergence of social media and the effects it has on, a lot of, young girls to older women, mental health? Like it's not all good. It's really not. That, again, the expectations of what a real woman looks like, acts like, works. I mean, these women don't work. I don't care. How can you live this life and don't work? It's just really amazing how perception becomes reality, and then it starts to distort the psyche.
Well, let's call the highlight reel for a reason. Because people want you to see the highlight. And I call Facebook fake book. Because everybody on there is trying to be something that they're not. And that in itself can be stressful. Just imagine you're always trying to give the highlight of your life. And trying to put the best foot forward. In fact, I like doing lives, talking to people. I had done a live, and a friend of mine said, well, my husband said you didn't put on makeup when you did your live, and you need to put makeup on. I said, says who? I said, I didn't feel like putting any makeup on. I said, on a daily, I don't put anything on my face but lipstick. And on that day, my lipstick was all rubbed off. I had to give a word. And if I'm quaking and I'm hearing the Holy Spirit tell me, give a word, I'm giving a word. I don't have time to go put. She's like, oh, he said you didn't have makeup on. So that's the expectation. It's like we're living for someone else and we can't do that anymore. Ladies, we got to do it for ourselves. And the younger ones are struggling because they feel like they have to have it all to be successful. And it's even harder on them.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Devi?
Yeah, I agree. I think, we live in a time, especially with young people, there are many factors. One is what Cindy talked about, is that people are putting, their holiday pictures forward, like as if life is that. And so there's a lot of keeping up with the Joneses, feeling like you're inadequate. And before then, there's the bullying piece, right? Before, maybe the bullying happened in the schoolyard. But now
For
it
the
is
world
even
to
when you
see.
come home and you're basically strolling down those pictures. There was a talk, because now people are beginning to research the impact of social media. I didn't grow up with it, right? None of us, I think, grew up with it, on young children. And for example, there was things that we don't even think about, like your child has been invited to a birthday party. They go, everything seems to be all right, and then on Instagram, the birthday party picture is put up, but your child's face has been removed, photoshopped out of it, as if he or she never attended, right? So there are things like that that we didn't have, those kinds of pressures in our lifetime. Online bullying, things like that, which is really a challenge. So, yes, social media has a way to connect. During COVID, when we couldn't meet in person, I think we used it a lot. But the flip side of it is also really very dangerous, especially for young people. Then the distortion of facts,
Mm.
your reality changing, reality television. I think reality television has had a lot to do with some of our times now, and where we cannot even agree on what the facts are anymore. So those are some of the big concerns for
Yeah.
us, for people younger than us, and how we navigate that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
she said.
reality television is definitely a big one right there.
Yeah,
Reality,
she said
social media.
about facts. Yeah,
Yeah,
facts and feelings. When people in their feelings, facts go out the windows. Like when people
definitely.
are in their feelings, like you
Yes,
can show them the receipts, the screenshot, the blood, the
absolutely.
DNA, and they still don't care if they're just 10 toes in their feelings. So
And
yeah.
in therapy, a lot of times we say feelings are not facts. We talk about it as psychic equivalence, right?
Yeah,
What you're thinking and feeling, that isn't, it may be your internal reality. That's how you're feeling, but that's not the external reality.
Yeah.
And these things are really becoming skewed through the lens of everything through media. The other thing, too, I've noticed with my generation of people, where supposing it's a wedding anniversary, you're posting very private things you would say to your partner to the world. So there is an added thing that you're not only celebrating your milestone or a wedding anniversary, but you're also showing the world, right? And then
And you're
how,
opening
I
yourself
gotta be real.
and you're opening yourself up to criticism. Because
yeah, but you're
people
also
thinking they
sort
put
of,
this on, out in the open. Oh, everybody's gonna love it like me. Somebody might be like, "Girl, you shouldn't have did that. You should
Right.
white ain't you. That's not your color." So you gotta be ready for it. If you put it out there, you gotta be able to take it. That's
Yeah.
my thing with social media. Like sometimes I'll put a picture up and it go right into the draft. I'll be like, no,
and it's, I think, like an addiction, right? Similarly, you want the likes, you want the views.
Yeah.
Very much like how you fight addiction, there's a component of social media that is like that.
It's very alluring. Very
Yeah.
alluring.
One other thing that I think is definitely when it comes to like mental health as a woman, as a black woman, the Diva Day Spa, you are Maryland's first black-owned day spa. When it comes to ladies, and it's amazing, right? Holistic healing and wellness. That right there can affect your mental space in so many different ways. First of all, being a business owner, but also being granted to be a black business owner, a woman business owner. How do you get through those things every single day? Because there's going to be so many doubts for you. There's going to be so many hardships when you talk about loans. How do you get through being a black woman business owner?
You know what's so amazing? You said that, and 3 days ago, someone called me saying, "Hey, I saw you in an article." I said, "What article?" So I go and I Google articles, and there was one Black Enterprise. They listed top 9 day spas, the black-owned day spas, and we were one. So this is great. I think for me, because I'm operating in my calling, and I'm finally authentically who I am, as a healer, as a counselor, and I love what I do. And I've left healthcare to hair care to healing. I'm happy doing what I'm doing, but the pressure becomes everybody wants to talk to Cindy.
Mm.
Everybody wants Cindy to give them a word because they know that she's gifted. They know that when she lays hands on them, they feel a release. So everybody wants to talk to her. So her phone is constantly ringing. And she has to get to a point where she's like, okay, we have a call service answering the call, but then some of those calls still get filtered through. So the pressure is on when it comes to people needing help, people reaching out, people calling and say, if you don't talk to me, I feel like I'm going to end my life, like talking people off a ledge, doing, couples counseling 1 minute. So it's that kind of pressure. But when you talk about the other, it's easy when I'm doing the work because that's what I'm called to do. It's just that I wish I could clone me so that there's more than one of me to take care of all that's coming. So many layoffs, so many people going through stuff, and they're showing up at our door because they need a release. They need to scream it out. They need to cry it out. They have nowhere to go to. And that's when I'm like, Lord, send me 6 or 8 of me so we can do the work.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's where the pressure comes in.
Yeah, we all want 6 to 8 of us as women. We need a few of us as women. Lady T, you talked about that earlier. You need like 1,000 of you. Like, how can you be a comedian? You're a TV host. Like, you're over here hosting all these events. You're getting awards because, hello, she just got an award. Put some respect.
Hey.
Okay. What is that for you when it comes to self-care? Like, how do you just say, all right, like Charita said earlier, like, sit down, lay down, go lay down. What do you tell yourself, girl? Lay down.
I'll be honest. I do not do self-care very well. I was about to say, listen, I was about to lie. I was going to lie for a second and be like, yeah, it's, yeah, girl.
Don't do it.
Okay,
Don't even do
in
it.
my defense, though, it's because, like, so I don't get a chance. I have a life coach. I have a therapist. I have a pastor. And everyone says the same thing. Like, Lady T, you really have to focus on the self-care aspect. And then they're like, well, what do you like to do? What is it that you like to do on the side besides your career? And I was like, my career, whatever you just put to the side, bring that back. Because that's what I like to do. Because I don't really know. So it's confusing, but I'm still trying to figure out the whole self-care thing. But I'm starting to really find out who I am, what I love to do. Like I love, axe throwing. I love doing that. To me, that's very
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I find that women need to find the things that we actually like to do on the side that's not work related. And we need to do that more often. And I found out that's like a little part of self-care too. Just finding out those little things that we love. Because there's no balance. Oh my goodness. Like, I wake up at 2:30 a.m. I got to be at work by 5 a.m. I get off at 1. I have to take like a little nap in order to get, everything together. Then I start booking again for the rest of the week. And there's no time to sleep. There's no time to sleep. There's no time to eat. There's no time to do anything. You're just operating off of just fuel and fume. And I know Cindy's going to really, really, really get on me about everything I'm saying right now in like the next 5 minutes. But self-care is really important. I'm still figuring that out for myself, and I hope everybody else can figure it out too, because it is so important just to have that time to yourself. So, I'll get better. Yeah. I promise.
And next Tuesday at 2.
Right.
I gotta open it
in her office now.
That's important to touch on, is that a lot of women, whether intentionally or otherwise, are forced into positions that you have to take care of yourself. You're moving so fast, things are really moving, and you're at work a lot. You're grinding, you're trying to perfect your craft. So you spend a lot of time at work. So how do you balance that in between? That thank you, Danielle. Ray just gave us a whole bunch of praying hands, and I'm ironically like that. But how do you balance that kind of stuff? Because obviously, you got to make the money to live the life you want to live. But at the same time, you don't want to be morally corrupt doing it, you gotta find that balance. I mean, I definitely try to. Sometimes I have to turn down money so I don't miss a milestone in my daughter's life, you know?
Yeah.
That's important. That's just as important as the money to me, you know, because I don't ever want her to be like, but you wasn't there, you know, that kind of thing.
Steph, you were on it.
So how do you guys,
everybody? That's a
everybody?
good point that you made, Steph. Because to be honest, like, and I don't mean to cut you off, but it's like,
No, go ahead.
if I don't show up, like a lot of people get upset if I don't show up to like their events. So it causes me to go to 3 to 4 different events in one day, and I'm exhausted or wiped out, and I'm like, okay, well, at least I didn't say no to them, and I gave everybody like at least 1 to 2 hours of my time. But it really is tough finding that balance. So if any of you have advice for that, let us know.
I have advice for that.
Yeah,
I think I'm probably the oldest person here. I have advice for that. You have to learn to set boundaries and stick to them. You can't let it matter what other people are thinking. If you have to go inside of yourself, you have to say, this is what is best for me. So maybe I got 5 invitations. I can do 3. I can't be 5 places in one day. So the first 3 people that showed up and said they needed me to come, I told them, yes, I will come. The next 2 people, I cannot come. I don't have, and this is what I have created myself that I say, I do not have the emotional bandwidth to deal.
Add that to my text message that I got.
Let me write that down.
What is it again? I don't have the emotional bandwidth.
I do not have the emotional bandwidth. I do not have the spiritual and emotional capacity. Now, I was not always like this. I was yes. How about no? How about no? You know, you get.
How about rain check? How about another time? You know, give me some options.
We can't do all of that. And I'm going to bring it back to something that Devi, I'm sorry, I pronounced your name wrong, was saying, alluding to our children. Our children watch us. And I don't know, because of what I do with NAMI, the suicide rate for Black children has skyrocketed over the past 10 years. I don't know what they're seeing. I don't know what they're doing. But as I've heard it said, the kids are not all right. And we have to be mindful of the children in our orbit. The youngest child that I heard that actually successfully died by, not successfully, excuse me, that died by suicide was a little 8-year-old girl who was being bullied. We really have to pay attention. And I also must say, I was an early childhood teacher, so I really pay attention to the little ones. We have to pay attention to the little ones, because when nobody's paying attention to the little ones, they grow up to be the big ones that are not paying attention to themselves. They're saying yes to everything, or who are looking at all this stuff on Facebook, TikTok, whatever, and saying, oh my goodness, I'm not like that TikToker. Well, they're not like that TikToker. You're watching their outtakes, and they practiced that dance for 20 hours before you got to see it. So, you know, I think we really have to be mindful of showing love to one another. And I'm going to share something quickly that I share with people. There is a Native American axiom of the 4 rooms. And what it says is everybody has 4 rooms: an emotional room, a spiritual room, a physical room, and a mental room. And you have to go into every room every day, if only to air it out.
That's why we have the emotional what? What is it again?
Bandwidth.
Because we need to air it out. And see, that's the point right there. It is a year of no. It's a year of how about no. How about no? We're gonna clear out the air. We're gonna clear this out.
How about no?
Our text messages, our social medias, our emails. We're going to cleanse them all as women. We're going to take all that baggage off of our backs and we're going to get going. Like, you know, Diva, when it comes to mental health issues like anxiety, depression, like we experience so much anxiety, especially when someone texts you to say, hey, can we talk? Or, hey, you got a minute? That, hey, can we talk? Stresses me out so bad. My anxiety is an all-time high. Or are you free tonight at 7? Why? Because, like, you know, it's so many different things. But, Divi, when it comes to mental health issues like anxiety, depression, you know, it's more prevalent amongst women. What are some of the unique factors that can contribute to these higher rates when it comes to women? Because I'm sure it's a lot.
So let me first preface it by saying that I am at Sheppard Pratt, which is a lot of services, but I primarily work in hospital-based services. Mm-hmm. So I think Charita talked about this. There's mental health and there's mental illness. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking about those levels when it goes into mental illness. Mm-hmm. It is multifactorial. It's a biological, psychological, and social. These are the three things that contribute to mental health problems. There are risk and protective factors, right, in all these three realms. And so one of the things, especially as we're talking with children, is what I mentioned earlier, attachment. If that gets disrupted, that caregiving secure base with family because of a whole lot of reasons, then we see certain kind of sequelae, certain kind of outcomes that can lead to depression, anxiety. I also we've been talking about trauma, but a specific kind of trauma, which is attachment trauma. That is when there are lots of disruptions in your upbringing because of a variety of reasons. Maybe your parent had a mental health illness or was incarcerated, or there was things that are just not positive, right? So the risk factors keep going up and the protective factors keep going lower and lower. And for some people, there's also a lot of resilience that despite that, their pathway is of, if not well-being, of survival. Sometimes it is not. And then, as I said, the genetic, physiological. So we look at a combination of all that to bring sort of mental well-being, health, prosperity. So I see a lot of those issues. I see also something which we call your operating system. How are you functioning, right? How can you regulate emotions? How, when you see a social media feed that maybe evokes jealousy or anger or shame, how do you manage to regulate those feelings? And if some people have trouble, a lot of the therapy is understanding your sense of self, your ability to regulate these negative emotions, and to sometimes turn suffering into ordinary pain. Because suffering is when it's really, but pain is something that's a part of life. So how can we turn that into something that's manageable? I don't know if I answered your question, but these are sort of at the heart of a lot of things. And then, you know, Charita, you've talked about very openly about bipolar illness. And there's specific ways in which those symptoms manifest. But underlying all these are some of the common factors that we see.
Nope, yep, you answered that perfectly. Thank you so much.
And you know what? Just to jump on the end of that, I think trying to figure that stuff out without feeling guilty is another way. Like, or some people feel bad about trying to figure it out. You know, I don't think you should. Like, you know, sometimes you have to shut down, or, you know, take two steps back to take, you know, one big leap forward. A lot of people, you know, might feel, you know, they don't want to let anybody down, the guilt, or, you know, I can't do this, I can't do that because then, you know, so-and-so needs me. But, you know, you can't help anybody out if you're not healthy yourself. You know, I find that out. I found that out the hard way, that you absolutely have to be, you know, resolute in your own. You have to. Before you can help anybody out. Does any of you ladies feel like that? Like sometimes even, you know, where when you really want to, help yourself, you still often find it like it's such an internal struggle to not feel guilty about, maybe prioritizing your own mental health first before anybody else's. I mean, I don't know. I don't
I'm
think
gonna tell you,
Cindy,
put
and
your
so they're
oxygen mask on first in a plane, right? So we have to put our oxygen mask on first.
Say it again.
One
See,
thing,
stuff like that. That's what I'm saying. Like,
That's
one
it.
thing that I don't feel guilty about is Sundays. My phone is off, and I get up, I get breakfast, I shower, and then I lay there in my corner and I sleep, I drool, I snore, and I don't feel guilty about it. So I find a day or a day where I feel like I'm guilt free and not caring about what anything is happening or what anyone is doing. I think we need to do that because we get rope dope, like Lady T's talking about all these events and all these functions that we feel like we need to go to. And then you got the church function and then the this and that. Everybody's inviting you everywhere. But on Sundays, I'm like I said, I'm shutting it down. And I do that by shutting off the phone so I'm not accessible. And I do
another
that
component,
unapologetically. Yeah.
another component which is shame. That's a very deleterious, feeling ashamed of who we are, what we're suffering, whether we're rich or poor or not rich enough, right? Or not pretty enough, whatever it is. So I work with a lot of people where shame is such a debilitating emotion. It actually prevents growth. It retards growth and it doesn't help. So a lot of our work is developing what we call shame resilience, right? Resilience to feeling shame for things sometimes we cannot help.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? We know how we respond to different people when they come to us with all different issues. We know our response. But I want to talk about like how you want people to respond to you. Like Lady T, how do you want people to respond to you when you vent about your mental health issues? Is the response more supportive or negative for family or friends? What do you expect from them and what do you get? We can all want to vent, but when it comes to that point, what do you get when you vent?
I think I just want a little bit of empathy.
Yeah.
Or don't you just want to feel heard? Like I just want to feel heard. Like I just want somebody to feel like okay, like Lady T is she's saying something. Let me tune in. Let me listen to what she's saying about how she's feeling. Like sometimes we just want to be heard as women. We just want to feel like our voice is heard. And we don't get that a lot because they're like, well, we just need from you. But when we start saying like things aren't too great, things aren't really okay, like I just want somebody to listen, a little bit of empathy, or connect with me, or be like, girl, I'm gonna take you out to eat, you know what I mean, like something like that. I feel like
we can go back to happy hour too,
you know what I mean, like it's nothing like food to really help recover and do things like that. But no, it's just I want a little bit of empathy, I think, in that case. And I do feel a lot of like, you don't really know what to say or when to say it or who to say it to. Who could you trust? There's a lack of trust in our industry. And Persia and Steph, there's a lack of trust. Like you don't know who to trust or who can I say this to, or would they repeat it to the higher ups or somebody else?
Right.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a different type of time. But also back to what y'all were saying about, feeling guilty and stuff. Listen, I'm West Indian and Caribbean, and baby, they really know how to make you feel bad and you can't do what they told you to do.
Girl.
They really know how to make you feel bad. They practice that. We're raised that way. So yeah.
Now, when you were talking about worthiness is something that comes from the inside. We have to decide that we are worthy. Devi was talking about shame. As I started off by saying, I have a bipolar 1 diagnosis, and I am living very well. I am thriving, but it was expected when I was diagnosed when I was younger that I would eventually need a caregiver. And the reason I don't is because I had a phenomenal therapist that had me. We created a wellness plan, and you don't have to have mental illness to have a wellness plan. And you don't have to have a mental illness to feel that you are worthy. And what I would say to you, Lady T, specifically to you, and Steph actually said it earlier, you got to watch for the takers, because there are a lot of takers. And when the takers see that you are full of that goodness, that I can see it and I don't know you. When they can see that you're full of that, it's going to be, ooh, let me get some of that. But sometimes we got to shut it down. Yep. We got to, as I said, got to go lay down, got to shut it down, got to tell them, I'm done. That's it. Sometimes we got to just pause and breathe and set a line. I'm going to try to say this quick about boundaries. A boundary is like, let's pretend that there's a fence around me and that the fence has a gate. And so I'm inside my boundary. Well, I get to decide who comes inside my gate. And if I'm tired of you, I can ask you to leave. And my fence, because I don't have as much trust maybe as some other people, I have some barbed wire around my fence. Can't jump over.
The last of us.
You can just come through the gate. And when I'm done with you, you can go back out.
Yes.
And the people for me that it's been hardest with, I think, of course, are my siblings. But other people, that has worked beautifully because I have kindness, I have empathy, I have compassion. I'm going to love you, but you are not going to suck the life out of me. At my big age, you're not going to do that.
I love saying that at this big age. At my big age, I'm not going to do it. I love that.
And I want to touch on something I think Lady T, Charita, you did as well, is seeking professional help. I think a lot in our community, I don't think a lot of people are against it. I don't think a lot of people know where to go. I know at one point I was seeking some therapy and all I could find was like older white men that couldn't relate to my experience.
Oh, you gotta go to therapy.
Help me about, my Black mother, my Black experience or my urban experience, and you have never set foot in my experience. So I found that very, intriguing that a lot of people do want to seek help, but they don't know where to find it. Where do we find it?
You gotta go to therapyforblackgirls.com.
Thank you. See? All you
gotta do that. My life coach was the reason why I found my therapist. She was like, go to therapyforblackgirls.com. And then she was like, then you can kind of pick, like, call the therapist, and you get to pick, like, who. Does anybody else know about this? Do y'all know?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay, yeah. It was just she was just like, yeah, go on there. You can pick the person, like call different ones to see who you really vibe or mesh with, and it was kind of like it was like dating. It was like dating.
Wow. Yes,
and it was good.
And you can also look at Psychology Today. They have profiles of therapists that you can look at. I have to give my NAMI plug. You can also call NAMI because NAMI has a helpline and we do support and advocacy. We don't have clinicians, but what we can do is help lead you to a clinician who can help you. And that's something that is very helpful. And Lady T, what you just said hit it. Absolutely. Everybody is not a fit for you. The last therapist that I had was actually a Jewish woman. It just depends. My therapist that I had for 2.5 years, who broke me through so that I could live well, was an apostolic Black man who had a therapy degree. And, I was an apostolic Black woman, and that worked perfectly for me. So you got to figure out what is a connection and what is a fit.
Yeah.
And that is so important, because sometimes Cindy can't do all the healing for everybody in the world.
Okay.
She can.
And her phone is off on Sundays, honey. So
That's
listen.
unapologetically.
Right. And as it should be.
And I will say one thing.
Yeah.
There's also some of our Sheppard Pratt community services. And one thing with Cindy is, I think the caring that folk like Cindy provide, it's a feel good. It's great. We need it.
Yeah.
But sometimes therapy can be painful because you're opening up issues.
Mhm.
So it is not like a straight line like this. It can have ups and downs. Right? And it's
so
a journey. Charita, you can talk. You've talked about your experience.
Yes.
And sometimes so it is more like a dip in a cold ocean than like a lovely spa thing, because
That's
sometimes
true.
you're opening up things that are difficult.
Because it's like those old wounds begin to open up. And you're,
Yes.
what was
yes,
that, Cindy?
yes.
At one point I was laughing and crying at the same time.
Yes.
On
But-
your little
Yeah. But
That's
Dr.
crazy.
Devi, a combination of all is important. And we're not just physical beings, we're spiritual beings having a physical experience.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not just self-care that I want to offer people, it's soul care, because
Yes.
sometimes your soul is tired.
Yes.
Your
Go
soul
ahead,
is tired.
girl. Your
It's full to
soul is
worn out.
capacity. That's
it is
why
Worn
you
out.
need a release. That's why you
yes.
need to scream it out. Scream it in the shower. Scream
Yes.
it. Let it go. Release it. Because you can't release it in other places because it's frowned upon. So find a place that you can release that. Otherwise, your
You
soul
let it
keeps
build
burning.
up. Yeah, you let it build and build. That's like
Yes.
all it takes sometimes is a hairpin trigger. It'll be
And
the
then you
smallest
explode.
thing.
And that's why
Boom.
we have to deal
What
with
do you
it.
mean you don't have ketchup?
Yeah.
What do you
Going
mean
on.
you're out
And
of
here's the worst
nuggets?
part. There's always somebody standing right there, ready to
Oh,
capture the moment,
Yes.
the worst
With their
possible
camera.
moment, and then that defines you for I don't know
Ever.
how long.
Yeah.
Life
On the
is.
internet. Yeah.
So-
You're always gonna be on there.
I will, one more plug for therapy is, if you cannot find somebody who understands the cultural, social aspects
that
of
part.
your experience,
Mhm.
look for somebody who can, firstly, you said empathy.
Yeah.
I would say attunement, validation.
Mm.
And then once you'll have that therapeutic relationship, somebody who can also challenge you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that
Love
part. The
that.
challenges.
I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
But in a kind, empathic way, not in a way that's shaming, but somebody can challenge certain things. Because we're all also very flawed. we're imperfect. And
And
so those are the things to look for if you ever do go the therapy route.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
of course, self-care. I mean, I cannot tell you how much massages, treatments, all that is part of the self-care work.
Thank you.
And before we go, I wanted to show you this. This is Baltimore Magazine B. Can you see it? I'm
Yes.
trying to hold it in front of myself.
There we go.
This was the March issue, The Faces of Mental Health. So it was the first mental health issue that Baltimore Magazine did. And I was honored to be on the cover. But what was wonderful about it was that they decided to do a mental health issue
Yeah.
where they focused on different people dealing with different aspects of mental health. And Aruna Miller, who's the lieutenant governor, is also in it because her dad had an issue with mental health challenges. So, we got to get this out in the open so people will be willing to talk about mental health, and so we can get help, because you can live well with a mental health issue. I'm a witness.
Mm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all of your amazing words, your inspiration, your positivity. We appreciate all the phenomenal panelists for being a part of this. Of course, shout out to our sponsors for helping us put on this event, because without Sheppard Pratt and NAMI Maryland, this would not be possible. So we're so thankful. Do you want to give social media pages really quick before we go? Cindy, you want to go first?
At Diva Day Spa, at Diva by Cindy, IG, Twitter. I mean, no. Ooh. IG, TikTok.
There we go. Hey, go ahead, T.
At My Fair Lady T on everything. MyFai RLADYT. It's at My Fair Lady T on literally all my social media.
Devi?
I don't have any social media.
You got to pull up on her.
What is Sheppard Pratt? Is it at Sheppard Pratt?
I'm at Sheppard Pratt, yeah. So it's, if you look me up on Sheppard Pratt,
look for Devi. She right there.
Yeah.
Charita?
I am Charita Brown on Facebook. I am that's uppercase for Charita and Brown. I am Charita.Brown on all lowercase. On Instagram, I am Charita Brown. On LinkedIn, and my website is www.SharitaColeBrown, all one word.com.
Love it. And I think NAMI is at NAMI Maryland on Instagram too. So,
and before we go, P, I just want to thank all the people that chimed in. I saw some messages and comments underneath. Appreciate y'all. I hope the discussion helped y'all. And if y'all need anything, definitely reach out.
All right. Have a phenomenal night. Thanks, ladies.
Wishing you all blessings.
Bye. Yes.